Hi, this is Abby with Yarnful Mind. Thank you so much for joining me today. Our tutorial is going to go over how to make these granny striped ruffle scrunchies that I think turn out so cute and they look amazing in your hair. For the mindfulness exercise to go along with this pattern, I wanted to do something with self-affirmation. So I encourage you, whenever you snag or pull your yarn or have to frog for any reason, to stop, take a breath, and give yourself some self-praise and some self-love. This can be something very, very basic, like I'm glad I got out of bed today, or I'm glad I'm making this cute scrunchie. But I always find that the self-affirmations go a long way with me when I can pick out examples that I'm actually really proud of from my everyday life. Like when my daughter was screaming today, I breathed through it and wasn't angry and frustrated. And that just kind of helps remind me that I am having successes in the day and just stopping and pausing for that. So I encourage you to do that. It's going to be fun. If you do want to reference the written pattern for this, it is going to be on my new website, which is totally exciting. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started.
Okay, so my yarns, I used a baby sage, and then the Premier Everyday. This is in oat heather, and they're both 4 medium yarns. I also used a 4mm hook, then scissors and a darning needle. For the elastic, I used a standard size, which is I think 2 inches. I did also a variation with classic 10 yarn, and I used a 1.5 inch elastic, and that turned out super lacy, and it's a lot more petite, so I liked it. So we're going to start off with a standing double crochet. So go ahead and do a slip stitch like you normally would, and we're going to put that on the hook and then yarn over and insert it into the elastic, and then complete a regular double crochet. We're going to do an additional 40 double crochets around, so at the end you're going to look for 41 double crochets, and that's going to complete this first round. It can be a little bit awkward holding the elastic. I find it best to kind of hold the elastic between my middle finger and thumb until I get kind of where I have more material, and then you can kind of grab it a little bit better. Right here, I snagged my yarn a little bit, and I just wanted to use this as a reminder to give yourself that self-love you deserve, find some self-affirmation, and make sure you're giving back to yourself. Here we are at the end of our round, so we're going to end that with a slip stitch, but we are going to do a color change. So we're going to insert like we're doing a traditional slip stitch, and then instead of pulling from our working yarn, we're going to pull from the oat heather, and that's going to be our color B. So just inserting and pulling it through. To chain 3, and that is going to count as a double crochet. And then I forgot to cut my yarn from the last round, so please make sure you're fastening off. It gets real messy if we don't. All right, and then let's do 2 double crochets into the same stitch that we did the chain 3. And that's going to be our first cluster. We're going to chain 1 and then skip 2 stitches and then do 3 double crochets into that next stitch. And that will be our second cluster. At the end of each cluster, we are going to chain 1 in between where we're skipping the stitches. And we're going to repeat that around until we have 14. And do make sure you are ending on that chain 1. We just want the space at the end of our rounds. So I'm going to quickly, with the magic of photo editing, do this very quickly, and I will meet you guys right back here when it is all said and done. Here we are at the end. We're going to do a regular slip stitch to join our round. And I think because I get stuck up on pulling this slip stitch through and struggling, I forget to chain 1, but do make sure you chain 1. And then we are going to slip stitch into the next chain space. Once we get there, we are going to attach our color A, or in my case, it is this baby sage color. It is awkward whenever you're pulling it through, so just try your best to kind of hold it, and then do make sure you're tugging on those ends. Make it nice and tight. And then at the end, we'll just weave those in. All right, let's chain 3. This is again going to count as our first double crochet. And then we're going to work 2 double crochets into the chain space. And so that is going to make our first cluster of this round. And then we're going to pretty much repeat what we did from the last round. So we're going to chain 1 in between each cluster, and then each of our clusters are going to be a 3 double crochet into each chain space. You're going to repeat that around until again you have 14 clusters, and making sure you are ending on that chain 1. Here's me working it quickly, and I will just fast forward here and meet you again when we are ready to do that join. All right, let's go ahead and work that slip stitch into our chain from the beginning of our round. We are going to again do a slip stitch with our color B as our finisher. So pull that through as if it's your working yarn, and then we are going to chain 3. Make sure you're still pulling on the back of those tails to make sure they're nice and snug. Just kind of keeps our stitches aligned and helps line them up a little bit better. All right, let's do 1 triple crochet in the next 2 double crochet spaces from the last round. So that second double crochet you work, it's going to look like you're working into a chain space, but since it's after that post, you are going to work into that stitch to finish that triple crochet. Then our next step is going to be working 6 triple crochets into the chain space. This is going to make our nice little ruffle as we go around. All right, now we have our nice little ruffle. You can count them. We have 6 triple crochets, and that's what we want it to be, real fluffy. All right, then we're going to work 1 triple crochet into the next 3 double crochets. So that's all the double crochets that made our cluster. We're working just a single triple crochet in. And then all of our chain spaces, we are going to work 6 triple crochets. At the end, I think it turns out to be 126 stitches, so it's quite a lot, but it's our final row. Here's another pause for me and a big breath. Please make sure that you are finding time to thank yourself for being you. This is the end of our round 4 and our final round for our cute little scrunchie. So in order to join these, instead of doing that traditional slip stitch, we are going to do an invisible join. So let me show you how to do that. So for our invisible join, go ahead and cut the working yarn that you're working with, leaving a decent amount for a tail, and we're going to pull that through our working loop. And so we're just going to pull this all the way through. And then we're going to attach it to our darning needle. Then you're going to find that chain space that we would do a slip stitch in and go through the front to the back. Pulling it through, making sure it's snug. Then we're going to go through our last completed stitch, go through the middle and out the back. Make sure you are sliding the darning needle through that bottom little loop there. As you can see, it should go straight through, and pull it through. And then it'll be a nice clean. You can tug it a little bit. Make sure that you do go behind it and weave back and forth. There is a slight space there. I like to kind of weave in through that space to kind of tighten it up a little bit. And then you are done once you get all these ends weaved in. When weaving in your joins, this is just a fun little thing I like to do to make sure it's a little bit more secure. I do a slight little knot here, and then I will just kind of tuck that under the shell that was made with all of our ruffles. Just kind of tuck it up under there and then just go back around and do that traditional back and forth weaving to create that tension. That should help it not come out. For some reason, I just think with these scrunchies, you're pulling it, it's on your hair, so it's just nice to throw in some extra knots. And there we are. We're all done with our beautiful scrunchie. I would love to see what you've made, so please share it with me on Instagram, and then don't forget to like and subscribe.